Howdy, folks. Happy Tuesday?
Tuesday. You almost got it wrong.
It's
Tuesday-ish, early week-ish.
I'm not joking. With this whole thing, it really does throw you off in terms of days of the week because everybody's home. And it's like, there's always a structure. Yep. There's always, okay, the weekends we do this and that. And then the regular, it's all a kerfuffle right now. So, thankfully I got it right. I was like, okay, I listened to a show last night on the radio, and that's on Monday night. So I'm not going senile, and I'm not having, going like an act where he just loses track of the day. Okay. I had and this will be entertaining for you because I didn't die. I didn't die in a gas explosion, but it was a close brush with that. And Russ is shrugging his shoulders in disappointment. So last
you can judge that however you want, Mike.
Over the last couple of weeks, one of the things that we in terms of shaking things up, even though I usually don't do it until the summer, is using our barbecue a lot more and we have a barbecue that's sort of inside of our garage, right near the garage door, so the smoke will get out if you open up the garage doors. But in the winter, you can't do that because it's extremely cold. But hamburgers, hot dogs, whatever, just to shake things up because you get tired of eating pasta every goddamn day. So anyway, so I was going to make, I actually was going to grill a nice portobello mushroom cap that I had sauteed in balsamic.
That's like a burger by itself.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Sauteed it in balsamic vinegar. Okay, I know, Russ, you hate it. But I go out, and our grill is about 25 years old, and it's seen its better days, but it's still, it was still working, no problems. And we have a grill that's not not with the tanks, but it's attached to the gas line of the house. So it's not a freestanding propane tank. It's natural gas. So I light it up, I turn it on, and it's sort of sputtering there for a second, and it gets going, but it's making a little different noise than it normally does. And then all of a sudden, I see the flames shooting out of the bottom of the barbecue, and I'm like, "Oh, frig! The gas line is going to catch fire!" And I ran to it and turned it off, and luckily, no problems. But I would say if I had left it, it was about 10 seconds from blowing up that side of the house.
Wow.
After a career of making a lot of hot takes, you almost got taken out by one.
Fair point.
Okay, start us up with the non-death threatening pre-show, Russ.
Well, I mean, as far as we know, it's not. We all woke up to Major League Baseball saying maybe they'd start up May 1st. Now, this isn't like some media person dreaming up the story. This is MLB leaking some information from conferences and different discussions they've had, and then of course it comes out and they want to backpedal. But getting to the specifics of it, having it in just Arizona, they have 10 places. Sure, is it possible? Yeah. And Anthony had the greatest first point. Like, it's going to be 110 degrees for some days, and not everything.
Well, they're going to say, obviously, well, they're going to. I mean, how are you going to cram all the games? I mean, at night
they'll play a lot of them a day.
But even then, dead of summer, you're talking. I mean, listen, Chase Field, they always have. I mean, the top of the stadium's closed when you get to that point of the year.
Yeah, I know.
Russ said there's 10 facilities.
There are 10.
So that basically means they could play morning and night or afternoon and night, and be able to, if they have 10 facilities, they would be able to handle it. Although I think there should be more games at night, because a friend of mine lived in Arizona in Scottsdale, and it was basically in July. It's 110 degrees.
And here's the other proposed thing. So the umpire is going to have to stay further back. That's no problem. They may now implement the electric strike zone just because of that, which I think they don't have to do that, but clearly now this is their opportunity to slide it in and not have people like me go crazy. So they're going to probably do that. They are going to have 7-inning doubleheaders. So now it's softball. They are going to the other things that I'm surprised that I didn't read anything about. Here were my concerns. and I still play, right? I play softball, but like I played winter ball, right? And I've worn gloves while I've played. I think if players wore gloves, they all have the grippy gloves, everything else. I think even pitchers would get used to it. I think that would cut down on some of what the concerns are, but also they're spitting tobacco.
Yeah.
What are you doing about that? Where the balls and bats are coming from? Are you quarantining those before players pick them up without gloves? Because that stuff's handmade.
Are they going to buy those copper gloves from Brett Favre?
What's funny about the Brett Favre commercial? My wife and I were watching it the other day, and she said something very smart. She said, if Brett Favre needs all of that to play touch football, he shouldn't play. And she's right.
Come on, his knees are like jello.
He couldn't even walk. That's the funny thing about that commercial. When he was walking away, he was walking slow. But anyhow, getting back to baseball, I think this is workable, but I think the problem is they shouldn't have leaked it out yet. Adam Silver is still doing this the right way. He came out with like a one-line statement, and it was, I'll talk to you May 1st. And you know what? And that's the right way to do it, I think.
And Bettman echoed that.
Right. Bettman basically copies Adam Silver. I mean, let's face it. It's real. That's the NBA.
But both being indoor sports.
Yeah, but the NHL copies the NBA with stuff like this. We know that. I don't think it's nothing that I'm saying against Bettman. I'm just saying that
they sort of have to because they're sharing buildings. So
exactly. It's normal lockstep. But baseball here, I don't know why they stepped out to do this, because like Mike and I were talking off air the other day, and the false hope is worse than not having any hope, right? So because again, I go back to like Anthony, you're a dad, right? So I'm sure there was a point where you said to your son, hey, I'm going to get you, I don't know, Tickle Me Elmo, and then all of a sudden you can't get it. And then you have to say, here, I got you this instead, or you get him nothing, right? Because you can't get it. And there is that disappointment. And right now we're all hanging, not all of us, but a lot of us are hanging on to just sports fans, forgetting that it's, our livelihood at times. A lot of us are just hanging on for that message, or that hope. And it's like, this might be the wrong hope. That's the only problem.
Well, it's funny. It's funny that you mentioned that because, like I said, I watch the Michael Kay show out of New York every day because, believe me, I need some sort of sports fix. And they were talking about this yesterday, and Kay, obviously being the play-by-play announcer for the Yankees, he's like, the worst thing that could happen is you start up in May and then something spikes or something happens, and then you have to shut it down again, and all the the positivity and the confidence of sports being back is shut down. It could shut down
and the cost that's involved with having to shut everything down after you've powered everything back up. That's the other problem in the logistics of this.
Right.
Dana White can whip out his fights on one fight a week on a private island, Mortal Kombat nonsense.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, because that I thought was ridiculous. I was like, I've heard this before.
I mean, clearly he's looking for a place with no laws, so that's fine.
Exactly.
But the problem is, let's say you're bringing 12 to 14 combatants for a card, right? And you're bringing them all to this island, and somebody, or maybe one or two of them gets hurt. Where are you airlifting them to? Like, where are you? You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Dana White's.
Well, he's looking at the infrastructure, which will be basically we'll have them play over the pit, and one will uppercut them into the pit and kill them that way.
I mean, I just don't think Dana White has thought this through. And what I gave Mike as an example was
it's for shareholders.
When I was like younger and boxers were sort of washed up, they would look for places that wouldn't be as strict with boxing code and with licenses. And it seems like this is all that Dana White's doing now to keep it going. And he is going to try and basically thumb his nose at every other sport and say, look, see, I'm doing it. But again, if you're doing it out, let's say it's the Pacific, you're doing it out in the Pacific at an island and something happens, good luck, getting back into either this country or whatever country you're doing.
Right. Now, it's like we did with, a few years back with Fire Festival, how that fell apart.
Right.
So it's the same principle as getting people out there is when we talk about infrastructure, we're talking about insurance, we're talking about everything else. And it
could be a nightmare. And the other thing is, the other ethical thing that comes into this is, so Dana White's already bought up these COVID-19 tests. Where is he getting them from ahead of the general public? Because even on the Philadelphia News yesterday, I told Mike I saw a clip attached to a show I watch, and they basically said that the home tests are coming, but they don't know when. Dana White's already bought his, right? So, like, who is he keeping him from by buying his? So that's another ethical question that
I'm trying to wonder right now where a lot of these guys are, just, especially the guys like White, are at the point of just, my investments are more important than the general public. That's right. But that's when rubber hits the road, you're seeing who these guys really are.
And I think so. He runs the risk of the same blowback.
And remember that, and I'm going to say, for people who realize that, remember that the next time he wants you to buy in on ESPN Plus or one of his pay-per-views, already the WWE already took, I think, a major risk anyway doing WrestleMania. But I'm waiting for more positives coming out of there, but they'll try to keep that one under the.
It paid off for the WWE because apparently the ratings.
But the problem is that everybody else thinks they can now do it, and they think you can control it. And again, it's
personally,
I am with fire.
I've never bought a UFC pay-per-view package, and I'm not really interested in watching the next UFC 300 from St. Helena, where Napoleon was banished after. It's like, I don't care that much. It's like,
no, but people do, and I've covered 3 or 4 of them, and they'll get, like, just like you said with WrestleMania, it wasn't good. From what people said, there was probably 3 or 4 good matches, but people were bored, so they bought it. So Dana White will probably make money on it, but Anthony's right. Like, when
I feel like right now we're about a step or 2 away from the Running Man.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We're a step or 2 away in terms of sports and everything. Watch on that. I think we're like a step or 2 away from the Running Man at this point.
Well, I mean, anytime you have Gronk,
and I know that may sound over dramatic. No,
but I agree with you. I think and this shouldn't have appalled me, but this turned me off to the WWE forever now. The fact that they handed a belt to Gronkowski, the fact that they're going to clearly hand one off to Tyson Fury, who has no wrestling expertise or is maybe been practicing for the last month. So those kinds of things annoyed me to the point where it's like, you know what? I'm going to watch some other league, because at this point, I don't care that their personalities, like, the idea is they're supposed to be good at what they do. So I think while McMahon is riding the early wave, like Mike said, I think Anthony's right. I think the next few weeks and months, massive challenge that I don't think they're going to have a good time trying to overcome.
Yeah. All right. Let's start the show. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Tuesday, April 7th, 2020.
I'm Anthony Mangione from Sunrise Philly Magazine.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. And I have to say that Gronk winning the WWE Championship is an abomination, but you could see it coming a mile away.
Yeah, they call it the 24/7 one because, like, you could win it anytime, anywhere, but it's just stupid. The whole thing, the premise of it is stupid, and Gronk winning is stupid.
And we hear a train in the background there, Anthony.
The runners are out there. In case anybody were wondering whether or not this was a Zoom background behind me, no, this is my yard. But I'm not far from the train.
We will take some questions in the chat after a little bit here. We have a few stories to discuss. One of them, and okay, we're not trying to be Leaf centric here, but the big news of the day was a signing out of the KHL that's been a player that's been talked about for going back to October when Elliot Friedman mentioned Alexander Barabanov. He's a 25-year-old winger who played for SKA St. Petersburg, or SKA St. Petersburg, you want to call it that. He had 46 points last year behind Nikita Gusev. Had a really, really good year, and his points dropped precipitously this year. He only had 20 points, and Anthony I'm sure you know, when they get a whiff of somebody who's going to North America, when the rumors start coming out, that you find that the ice time immediately starts to decline, and that was the case with Barabanov. I guess his minutes went down to like 11 or 12 minutes a game after October, going in the midst of the KHL season. So he didn't have as good of a season as he did previously, but more than 20 teams contacted him and his agent Daniel Milstein about him coming over, and there was talk that the 2 leading candidates were Arizona and the Leafs, and today he signed a 1-year contract with Toronto. But I think the thing that's most curious about this, we'll talk about the player in a second, is it's a 1-year deal. Yeah. It's an ELC. and he's 26. He turns 26 years old in June. So after the 1 year, he's a UFA. So would you rather sell your wares playing on the third line in Arizona, which don't get me wrong, I think Arizona's a good team, but offensively challenged, or if the Leafs trade somebody like Andreas Janssen, he could have a chance of playing with either Tavares or Matthews and put up good totals and then be a completely unrestricted free agent. He could stay with Toronto or he could go someplace else and sell his wares. It made a lot of sense for him to sign with Toronto. But Russ, then Anthony, what did you think of the signing?
I mean, the signing's fine. I went back. I couldn't get my notes handy because it's probably on another computer for the 13-14 World Juniors, which would have been the last time I've seen him play.
Right.
But, at the time, there were highly touted guys on that Russian team, like Maxim Shalunov was a guy that was drafted by the Blackhawks. He never really made it. He's going to get his chance here, but it just was amazing to me, considering 99% of us have never seen any full game that this guy's played in, that Leafs fans could complain about Kyle Dubas the way they were on Twitter, saying that he overpaid at $950,000, and what are we doing getting another Dennis Malgin, and I forget the other person they used. And it's like, listen, this is the worst case scenario for a fan to go through now. Like, you shouldn't even worry about it. The fact that he could skate and can play pro hockey, you throw him in your lineup and you see what happens, but it's under $1 million for 1 year. Like, I just couldn't believe Leaf fans were complaining, but I guess.
Anthony, what do you think? Then I'll
I saw Ivis Callan's comments on him as well, in terms of just, it's very much let's see what he's got kind of thing. Yeah. We'll see. And again, at I concur with Russ at $950K. It's under $1 million. You take a look at him and you see what he can do. Again, he's coming. At age 26 again, he's going to have to adjust, as we all know, to playing because Ska obviously plays on European size ice versus the North America, and again, he's an older veteran. At this point now, we would call him a young veteran, I guess, at age 26. Mm-hmm. You take a look and you see what you take a look. It's a kick the tire situation at $950,000. Yeah. If it doesn't work, he goes back to the KHL,
right,
and makes money there.
And see this is what I don't understand, because I did see the criticism. I actually received a couple tweets back after I posted my article about it, and they're like, "Great, another small, skilled, empty." I mean, okay. We know that Dubas has the reputation of he likes small players, he likes skilled players, he likes guys that can skate. He doesn't like sandpaper. Okay,
this is more about Dubas versus the actual player in question.
No, this is about cap management, mm-hmm. and about using an avenue that is a cheap way of finding players. You're getting a guy who doesn't need to be developed, who doesn't need to be, doesn't need to, if he's good enough, doesn't need to go down the American Hockey League and acclimate himself to North American hockey. He should be ready to play in the NHL if they think he's as good as he is, or as they think.
Even Gusev started off slow, but he played right at the start, so this guy will too.
And Mikheyev had a long gap where he was ineffective. He scored a few goals and then he didn't score for like a month, or even more than that, and then he started to come around before he got hurt. But the whole point of this is you've got guys, skilled wingers, who have been mentioned in trade rumors like Kasper Kapanen making over $3 million, Andreas Janssen making over $3 million. You don't know where the cap is going to be next year. Here you got a guy who's a potential replacement for one of them, who's making $925,000. That frees you up to trade those guys either for defensive help or to clear cap space, and with no appreciable difference in terms of no significant drop off in your talent base on your team. It's a free swing. Why the frig wouldn't you take it? Because he's got a European assignment clause in his contract. If he doesn't make the team and they want to send him down to the Marlies, he goes back to the KHL and the contract doesn't count against the 50 contract limit. So it'd be stupid if a team doesn't. If this guy wants to come and you sign him to a 1-year deal, why wouldn't you do it?
I know. Again, I don't think the fan is thinking it through right now because they're not thinking about the cap. But if the cap stays the same, it's not like the Leafs can go hog wild in free agency. They can't. And so you do have to fill out a roster. even if this guy gets cut after 2 months of the season, you still have to start a team, to field a team, to start the season, to let the guys in the AHL play a little bit and see where you're at with those guys. And maybe somebody gets a call up 3 months into it and you can cut this guy. Either way, you've got to field a team. And when you spend $950 at the NHL level, you're not getting much. And when you're getting a guy from college, it's still a 50-50 whether he's going into your lineup. So at least Dubas can pencil this guy in the lineup, and I think that's effective. I think you have to do this.
And I also think that, we talked about this, at least I wrote about this last week, about Nick Robertson, who was their second round pick in the draft. He's 19 years old, and he's one of those in between guys who can't play at the NHL, can either play at the NHL level or play in the OHL with Peterborough because of the CHL NHL agreement, but he can't play in the American Hockey League because he won't turn 20 until next September. So it's either go back to the Petes or play in the NHL. And, Dubas would say, well, we'll give him an opportunity, but I don't think in the plan is to play a 19-year-old who's 160 pounds soaking wet. They would rather send him back to junior, let him physically develop, let him, get smarter at both ends of the ice. He apparently took some steps defensively, but you don't want to push that guy too early. And here's the guy who's 25 who's ready to step in. This is a better plan than going to Nick Robertson.
It comes down to, I think, people have familiarity with Nick Robertson too,
right?
Versus a player from the KHL. It really does come down, I think, in many ways to
he plays in the GTA, so they know
exactly. He plays in the Greater Toronto area, and they know him, so they feel more comfortable when we talk about not just physical development, but also mental development as well as critical. We all know, if anybody has a smidgen of knowledge when it comes to human psychology, sometimes young players are advanced, but a lot more often than not, they need the time. And they need time down there.
And this is going to be the consistent story about players from the KHL, because Barabanov, I just did a little digging, for the article that I wrote. When he was draft eligible in 2013 or 2014, I think it was 2014.
2014,
yeah. He was 160 pounds. He was 5'8" and 160. He's now 5'9" and 190 pounds. He's according to Igor Aranko, he is one of the 10 best skaters in the KHL. So we're talking about a smaller player, but we're talking about somebody who's quick, who's good along the wall, and that's conducive with the type of game that is played in the NHL now. 5, 10, 20 years ago, no, that doesn't work, but there are a lot of 5'9" players. So that it makes a lot of sense to go after that type of player, and I think it opens up opportunities for Robertson to go back to junior. And the Leafs are probably going to sign a couple other players, like somebody in the chat said Spezza. I think Jason Spezza is going to be back next year. He said he wanted to come back for another year. He played well after they fired Babcock.
And you don't want to finish. You don't want to end this way,
right? He's very popular in the room, and they like him. So I think that's going to happen. But there's going to be some changes because we don't know where the cap is going to be. Now let's just talk about the cap, because
actually before the cap, we should talk about the other player, Noel Hoffenmeyer, that Dubas got, who I'm real familiar with. I interviewed him pre-draft, and this was a couple years ago. And it's interesting because when Arizona drafted him, I thought they would give him a chance. Clearly, they really didn't give him much of a chance at all. And he was starring. It took him a few years, took him like 3 years, but then he was starring with the 67s. But the problem is, he wasn't one of those guys that played with the national junior team. He wasn't one of those guys that was even invited to the combine. Remember, not every player gets invited to the combine. A lot of times it's the connections, who you know, or the team that you've played for before just putting up points. And he's been putting up big points. He's an offensive defenseman who skates well, who knows how to play the power play, and he's getting better defensively, but he's not quite there yet.
Right.
And it's smart for the Leafs to get a guy like this, because you throw him in the AHL, you give him all the power play time he can handle, let him work on his defense, and in a year or two, you might have something. I think he's only 21 right now. Right. And I look at it, and I do question Arizona, the way they're sort of handling their young talent. And I don't blame this on Rick Tocchet at all. I think for whatever reason, there's something going on in their player development where they're making just decisions on guys rather than letting play in the long game. And it would be easy to play the long game with Hoffenmeyer, but I think it's cost related. And I think they have to make quicker decisions than some other teams because they don't want to pay a second contract if they can't use him right away. I think
there's something to be. I think there's something to be said for that, Russ.
Yeah.
When you've had some past ownership, in terms of just what the market is and everything else. Yeah.
Well, this is the thing I don't understand, and I don't think his name got mentioned when we were all in Vancouver. He didn't get signed by Arizona after the 2 years. He goes back into the draft as a 20-year-old. Now we've seen other players go back into the draft, like Nick Boynton was re-entered the draft, got drafted. Frederick Anderson was originally drafted by Carolina, then got redrafted by Anaheim. He had 62 points with Ottawa last year. He had 19 points in the OHL playoffs. He did not get picked, and he's not slow, and he's not he's a pretty smart hockey player. So I don't understand why
it's easy to fall off the radar. It just is, and. Even if he's in somebody's backyard, it's easy to fall off the radar when a bunch of scouts are coming in and they have other guys and they just rate them higher. And then all of a sudden the guy just doesn't get drafted. It happens. That's how a lot of these college guys end up being completely free and clear because, again, and a lot of times they are projects. I think Hoffenmeyer was a project to a degree, but again, I don't see where Arizona is so good that you would want to just give him up. But again, they let guys like Merkley go. They've let guys go lately, and I just think it's that second contract. And I think it's a shame because I think in the end it weakens their system in Arizona. I do.
Yeah, and Anthony, he's a 6'1", 196-pound defenseman.
Yeah,
he scored. Yeah. Now, granted, he was an overager, but he scored 82 points last year, and the Leafs got him on an AHL contract for 2 years. Now, I think some of that has to do with the fact that he's from North York and it's Toronto, but. He has a good year. They send him down to Newfoundland in the ECHL, or maybe he splits time between both of the teams next year. They could sign him to a pro contract.
It gives him time. 2 years gives him certainly a little bit of time to get a good look-see at him if he does again swing between the E and the A. Again, it's a good I think a good low-risk ticket for the for Toronto here.
One more thing before the cap, Mike, because I know the cap is exciting to talk about, but I did see. Torrey Krug did some sort of media availability with Boston, and he said he hoped he could come back. And I always laugh when a player says that because obviously there's a price that Torrey Krug can come back at. There's no question Boston would take him back at a certain price, and it's up to Torrey Krug whether he'll come in at that price.
Well, that leads into the cap because I saw Jonas Siegel write a column in The Athletic regarding Tyson Barrie and the pluses and minuses. Now, I personally think that even if the cap had gone up $2 or $3 million, there was no way in hell Tyson Barrie was getting re-signed by the Leafs because we remember what the talk was before the year that he was looking for $8 million. That's not going to happen because he had a bad year. After Babcock was fired, he started playing well, and I think he's in the top 10 of NHL scoring among defensemen since that point. But the whole point is, with Alex Pietrangelo out there, with Krug out there. I think Barrie at best would be third on the list in free agency. I don't think he's getting any more than, say, Justin Falk, which I think Jonas Siegel mentioned in his piece. But Toronto, there's no way that they're going to spend that kind of money after re-signing Muzzin at 5.6 and having Morgan Riley 2 years away from free agency. They're not going out there and signing Tyson Barrie for over $6 million and making him the highest paid defenseman. I think Boston's in the same boat. They're not going to pay Torrey Krug when they in 2 years have to pay McAvoy.
Yeah,
no way.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to end up it's going to be coming down to a choice. And again, Krug can get a really good deal elsewhere. I really do, in a starring or in pretty much close to into a starring role, whereas he would be further down the ladder in Boston.
But just say that. Don't act like.
But listen, Krug at the same time.
He's playing the game. That's all he's
playing
doing.
the game. He knows the fans in Boston love him. And
JVR said the same thing about Toronto before.
You have to. You have to make sure to keep all options open.
Right, exactly. You know what? It does them no good to say I'm not coming back. It's like at least you soften the.
You're Sean Burking it.
Right. You soften the blow, and when JVR comes back.
He's giving guitar lessons, by the way. Sean Burke is giving guitar lessons. Shouldn't he give goalie lessons? Why is he giving guitar lessons?
Yeah, the rash of people playing acoustic guitar.
Yeah, there's some bad ones out there.
Yeah, I'm appreciative of a professional musician like Sean Colvin or Jonathan Brooke, who I follow on Facebook, or others.
Brian May's playing every day. Great.
I love that. That's great. But if you're some schlub who took up the acoustic guitar when you were 45 and you're 47 now, and you're trying to bang out Ain't No Sunshine by Bill Withers, please spare us.
I know, like there's a guy, he's a nice guy, and he Facebook Lives, and the guy's playing like acoustic and a harmonica. Like, you want to lose me? That's the way to lose me, man.
It would be like me deciding to, like, try to rollerblade now and trying to giving, rollerblading lessons.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I saw on Abby Mastrako's timeline that Travis Zajac just bought rollerblades. And again, we were talking about how are these guys going to stay in shape because they can't skate. Well, I could say, because I rollerbladed pretty heavy for a couple of years, got some lessons, and it is just like skating. So that isn't a bad idea for him to do that. That was actually pretty smart.
We already saw Patrick Marlowe flying through his house. Nice to know he's got enough space to do that in his living room. That was cute.
Yeah, and his four sons. I think he has 4 sons who are probably all going to be in the NHL probably in the next 10 years.
Another horribly, I just want to say this is a horrible idea for an article. I can't believe Pierre LeBrun was forced to do it, but he had to do one on, again, naming the Seattle franchise. It's like this is like waiting for Rip Van Winkle to wake up. I mean, it's like, how long is this going to take? And I guess he probably went around and got everybody's ideas again for names. And weren't we doing this a year ago? It's enough already. I don't want to hear about it.
Got to churn the content factory, baby.
No, I don't want to hear about it until they actually do it.
I love Pierre, so
they probably
that's not a shot.
They probably had to get their PR team back together because the first original name was probably the Seattle Coronas. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of.
I like Sockeye. The Sockeyes would be awesome.
Metropolitans. At least there'd be one good Met.
They won't do that.
Sockeyes would be
good. As awesome as I think Metropolitans would be, to see them do it. I think I like the idea of the Sockeyes because I love the idea because I've already seen the symbol. I mean, Mississauga's the steelhead symbol is pretty cool looking.
Unfortunately, I think they're going to probably go with the Sasquatch, which I think is terrible.
Nah, I don't think
they're not.
It'll be the crack. It'll probably be the Kraken, or it'll be the.
I think the Kraken.
Actually, I do think it'll be something that's aquatic. It has to be.
Yeah.
I think it'll be aquatic, so I think it'll be aquatic. Steve goes Steve Zissou.
You say aquatic, I say aquatic.
Aquatic, quack, 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 quack. All right, so.
All right,
I think that's what we're down to, though. I think we're down to the Kraken versus the Sockeyes, and honestly, I mean, I'm happy with either one, but I kind of like the Sockeyes. I like the jersey possibilities.
Yeah, I could say that.
Salmon colored third.
Before we get to the questions in the chat room, a question for the panel, and I just told an artist that I know that I'm not doing it. I don't care if you're on TikTok and you're trying to draw me in. I'm not signing up. It's not happening.
Out of curiosity, and you know this because I posted it on Facebook.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, I logged on to TikTok at 4:00 in the afternoon on a particular day, and by 7 it was uninstalled. It is the most inane bunch of crap.
It's not for you. It's for like my kids. It's like. Yeah. You're about 40 years past that.
I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was, Anthony. I needed to
everybody. I mean, because you probably should see it's another social media platform. Teams are using it because of engagement,
right?
And this is another way we can engage our fan base and bring in the young fans. So we use these quick 10-minute video, 10-second whatever minute.
But how many videos do I need to see of somebody mouthing like the words from like Men in Black or something like that? That's basically half of it is. It's like it's lip syncing audio. It's like people
dance mostly. But honestly, I think TikTok in most cases is for dance in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and people doing little dance numbers and stuff like that. I mean, oh my God.
I mean, listen, Mike, you honestly could make a decent amount of money doing like a 10. Everybody wants to see Mike Augello doing dance steps, man, for about
nobody wants
40 seconds.
None. Nobody. Questions. Okay. Bill C. where do Russ and Anthony see Wade Allison fitting in for the Flyers in the future, and will he need some time in the AHL?
Oh, he needs time because we have to see if he's completely healthy. You could get through a college season on one leg with the kind of strength and basically knowledge of getting to the net and really great hands that Allison has. You can't do that in the NHL. So he's got to go through the rigors of at least one full AHL season to see how the knee's holding up. If somehow he can get through that, I think he's a fourth line guy. I don't know if he's going to be any higher than that now. I think people who have this idea of what Wade Allison was when he was drafted, it's a different Wade Allison now. I think his career is going to take a little different path, and he's going to have a different role.
But he has had a pretty good season at Western Michigan.
He did.
And that's the thing. And I think that's what's, I think, probably providing people with the idea of hope that, sometimes a younger player gets injuries early in their career and then they take off and then they some of it is luck and some of it is also, it could be a lot of different things. I would say right now, much like Russ, I would say probably they want to get a look at him in the AHL, probably in the AHL first. That being said, if he comes to camp, and again, he's on a 2-year ELC at age 22, he's not a kid.
Right.
If he's able to play and looks like he can play at the NHL level, I would not put it past him that he finds himself on the Flyers roster as soon as this season. But I think it's more likely that they're going to want to get a look at him in the A first before them.
Yeah, Drew in the chat says, is Allison the next Mike Vecchione?
No,
he's better than that.
No, Vec, I think had Vec's situation was an interesting one because again, this was before the Flyers lucked out in the draft and managed, and I mean, if you again, in terms of depending on what's going to be happening with him, once they drafted Nolan Patrick, that knocked him down the pecking order for having NHL opportunity. So again, no, I think Allison could be more than that. Again, he's also a winger versus a center, so responsibilities are a little bit different there. I think he's got an offensive skill set that I don't think Vec had. So I think the key thing with Allison is the fact that, again, he's got to have health. And again, the health is a concern in an area where it's going to be pretty important to him with the injuries that he's had.
And this is the big thing. This isn't like this is just like hockey health. Basically this knee affects him every day of his life. So like we don't know how much better it is. That's when we spoke with him during development. Right, that was during the summer.
It's during the summer, and again, with a productive season, it's possible again that he's gotten to the point where he feels much better at this point to be able. And again, you want to get the opportunity to be able to play at the NHL level. And again, at age 20, it was time for him to make.
Yeah, he's got to give it a shot, and he's got to play some games to prove it.
Exactly.
Funky Cold Zadina in the chat says Mike does TikTok to Genesis, so I don't think that would work. I can't see me singing into a mic doing "Turn It On Again."
No, you wouldn't do it to that. You would do it to "We Can't Dance." That's the obvious one.
We had some suggestions for Seattle names. Nick's 1904 says Seattle Super Duper Sonics. Anthony says the Seattle Slim Shadies. And somebody said, I'm trying to find it right now. Somebody said the Seattle Locks and Cream Cheese.
That one I liked. I saw that one.
That's good, man.
I'm good. Seattle Locks. The left wing.
If you want to shorten locks. I got a better one. If you want to shorten it, the Seattle Schmears. There you go.
Named after Paul Schmear, the former Minnesota defenseman. Okay.
There's some marketing. There's some food marketing there you could do.
Anthony Kennard in the chat says, Russ, with the Ducks trading Kasha to Boston, what do they have in the pipeline to look forward to? I'm assuming he means the Ducks.
I don't know. Does he mean the Ducks or does he mean Boston? I don't know.
I think he means the Ducks because, they traded Kasha. They traded Richie. I don't think they're short of forwards in there. They Lundstrom and
they got what's his name out of the U.S. program who's
Troy
great.
Terry. Troy Terry, Sam.
No. Better player than that. Hold on.
Oh, Zegras.
Yeah, Trevor Zegras is their number one. That's their guy. Like that, he could be a top liner for them. So that's a guy in, I think, another year or two, we're going to see Zegras. So Zegras is a big name. Max Jones, I know he got playing time this year. I think there's better times coming for him, and I think he's going to start to develop too. Look, they're not as loaded as they were before, but I think some of those other guys, even the Sam Steeles, if you can continue to get improvement out of those guys, then I think you're talking about something. But yeah, it's not as much. If you were going to say Boston, there's a whole litany of guys that I can go through.
Well, Zegras was ranked 7th in the Hockey News Top 100 in terms of prospects, top prospects under the age of 21. Which I just have to, I respect the Hockey News. I felt sorry for all the guys who got laid off recently, but I found it hilarious in this Future Watch, the Top 100, that the parameters for the list were players under the age of 21, and in the top 5 of the list, there was a 24-year-old goaltender.
Well, sometimes in the collation of lists.
Yeah. Okay.
And the big thing about Zegras is he's probably the guy that eventually replaces Getzlaf and pushes Getzlaf down. And I think that's important too, because if Getzlaf is around to help Zegras, that's a big deal. I'm also looking because they had one more player. Oh, I like Jackson Lacombe a lot. Now he's a defenseman. He's young. They literally drafted him out of Shattuck St. Mary's. He's only like a year out of high school.
There's a mention of Pierre Maguire.
I was gonna say. I was like,
no, but I'm just saying his age wise. So it could take him 4 years or 5 years to get there. But I think he's another really good pick by them.
Well,
Janicki might be 3 years. He could be.
I was going to say Janicki's probably
third, fourth liner. He was with the program. He left. He's another centerman, and I do like him. So it's not as robust as it used to be.
It's not a bare cupboard.
I was struck because for another site I did a review of the trade deadline and was doing the sellers in the Pacific Division, and I was struck by that final weekend before the trade deadline and up to 3 p.m. on Monday. Anaheim made 6 trades.
I know.
Yeah.
And honestly, I didn't think, I thought the getting a first round pick in the deal for Kasha was good. Although I like him as a player, so I think they got sort of fair value. They got Axel Anderson as part of the deal, and they had
Axel Anderson could be.
I like the Anderson.
He could be a second pairing defenseman, I think. And if everything hits right for him, because he's got speed,
right.
He has scoring ability. If it all would have hit right, he could be a second pairing guy. If not, I think he could be a third pairing guy.
But the negative to that deal was having to take on Backus at 75% of Backus for another year, because I just think he's past it.
I think another key when you're looking at Anaheim doing stuff like that, knowing that their system isn't deep, for whatever reason, they're never signing college free agents. College free agents don't choose them.
Well, Russ, they did try to sort of restock the shelves when it came to defensemen. They got Anderson, they got Joel Pearson from Edmonton, who's not old. So it's like
no. But what I'm saying is, while everybody's out there signing college free agents, for whatever reason, they don't want to go to Anaheim. Anaheim hasn't signed a good college free agent in a long time, and they just don't get them. And so they're up against it when it comes to that. So they do have to get it in other ways, and I think that's why they had all the trades.
But Anthony, I look at all those trades, and really, Danton Heinen for Nick Ritchie, they sort of cleared that middle road that they had to probably give the Steels and the Terrys and the Lundstroms the opportunity, and then basically wait for Getzlaf's contract to expire, and then maybe they go after a big free agent. That seemed to be what Murray was doing.
Yeah, that seemed to be the general pattern of the moves. I would agree with that, Mike. Yeah.
Funky asks a baseball question. If baseball starts, how does a manager remove a pitcher? Walk halfway between the plate and the mound?
He just has to stay 6 feet away. Like, what's the big deal?
Yeah, but
you have to walk all the way out to the mound, and at that point, just
he can walk out of the dugout, do this, and that's it.
That's it. Just go out to the mound, make the signal, and then the pitcher knows to come off.
The pitcher can't do this. He can't go to his mouth.
We're saying that, Mike, but if they're all tested, they probably can.
Sure, yeah.
If you can bang a trash can, you can figure it out.
Ooh, ow.
Yeah. You were on the show when I mentioned Gary Condit. Let's see here. Let's see how many questions.
We don't need to mention him twice.
That's more Gary Condit mentions that we've had on any broadcast that he's had in about 20, 30 years.
Okay, since it's Anthony okay, Russ, the trade of Brady Shea, I think, ended any concerns when it came to Anthony D'Angelo re-signing with the Rangers.
Yeah, and I told you Shea was going to get traded. I said it on the show 3-4 times before he did, and that was as good a season as D'Angelo was having, Shea was having a horrible year for what his talent is. So they had to move him. It was smart. D'Angelo is going to get, with this provisional buyout that will happen for every team, the Rangers will buy out Brendan Smith, and that money will go to D'Angelo. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, Funky points out Maxime Comtois is another one of those young.
Well, he's already. I think he's proven himself enough that I didn't have to sort of mention him. He had a pretty good year last year with him.
Max Jones, Max Jones too. So
I did mention Max Jones. Proves you don't listen to me, Mike.
Drew asks, if there are buyouts, do you think Montreal would buy out Carey Price? I personally, if I am Marc Bergevin and coming out of this, there is a compliance buyout, I'm either buying out Shea Weber or I'm buying out Carey Price.
Then Claude Julien quits. He quits. He's throwing down his clipboard, and he's done too.
Done? Yeah, if you're Montreal, you have to basically, if you make that decision, you are basically putting up the white flag and saying we have to have a few years here.
Yeah, and no way Claude Julien's going to coach through that.
No.
I mean,
it's easy to say, Mike, but they're not going to do it.
Well, I mean, let's just say they open themselves up to criticism because, I mean, Price is starting to show signs of decline as it is. He's had injury issues.
All right, Carey Price decline is still better than 3/4 of the goalies in the league. Let's be realistic about his decline.
No, I'm just saying he was on Mount Olympus 3 years. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And they have money, by the way. Even if the cap stays the way it is, they'll still have money.
Yeah, the problem is nobody will take it.
No,
nobody will take it.
The market's going to be different this year, Mike. Players are going to have to bend their sensibilities a little bit and have to go to some markets that they haven't been going to lately to make their money.
Somebody brought this up. I was having a discussion with a fan online, and they were saying, of course, pipe dream. Well, maybe the Leafs can sign Alex Pietrangelo, and they okay, yeah, keep dreaming. But what this is the thing.
They're going to sign every kid out of Toronto.
That would be the Leafs' attempt at what the Flyers did, trying to get Shea Weber. Basically.
Right? Do you right?
It won't work.
Except Weber was an offer sheet and it was an RFA. Right. And was a UFA.
No, exactly. That's true.
But the question was, and he couched it this way: in a uncertain cap market, say for example, we get a CBA done, the cap stays flat. Some players out there who are looking for the big payday are probably not going to get the big payday this summer or this off season. Would there be players out there willing to sign 1-year deals to wait until the financial situation is a little clearer? I personally think that's risky for that player. But if you're Torrey Krug, if you're Pietrangelo, if you want to max out the money that you get, maybe you take a 1-year deal. But those players will take 1-year deals with the teams that they're with, not with another. This is not Timo Solani and Paul Kariya years and years ago where they decided we're going to team up and go to Colorado. I mean, I know Pietrangelo's from the Toronto area. I know he's buddies with. I think he played before junior. He played with Tavares in the GTHL. Okay, and they're friends. I just don't see him taking like a cheap 1-year deal to go to play for the Leafs.
No, he's not going to do a 1-year deal. No,
but you're
he would do it for St. Louis, so they would have signed him already. They would have extended him already. Right,
but the question is whether he'll. I think he's like the exception to the rule. He'll be able to generate a market. There will be teams.
Oh yeah, he seems intent on going to the market and at least seeing what's out there. Similar to Tom Brady, except we all knew Brady was leaving. We don't know for sure if Pietrangelo is leaving, but he is going to test the market and he will price the Leafs out because he is going to get exactly what he's worth, and the Leafs can't afford that.
Yeah. Bob asked the question in the chat, and this is for the Rangers, Russ. Okay, is it Brendan in the compliance buyout scenario? Is it Brendan Smith? Is it Lundqvist?
It's not Lundqvist. It's not, because end of the day, you do that, you've now ruined your relationship with Lundqvist. You can't market him in the future. He's not going to come back when you want to retire his number. None of that will be in play. They're not going to do that. They're smarter than that. And Mark Stahl has been with them the entire time. So I'm getting the feeling they don't want to do that to Mark Stahl. And he still had moments where he could still play a bit. Brendan Smith is out of his depth. I mean, they started playing him at forward this year because they really didn't know what to do with him just to get their money's worth out of him. He's the guy that if you free him up, he'll sign with a team for $1 million, and you'll be happy to have Brendan Smith for $1 million. But for like the 4.2 he's making, you can't go on with that.
Well, Frenchie Ben in the chat says, "Come on, Mike, they'll buy out Alzner." Sacre bleu, Frenchie Ben.
No, but the one thing we talked about, which we don't know how it's going to work out, they may decide that because every team doesn't have a compliance buyout, that maybe a guy that you're paying off on retained salary, you might be able to lose. And if they did something like that, I think that would be fairer.
See, I mean, because they're okay, and of course, when I raised my objections to this, I looked at the Leafs, because that's the team I write about. They really don't have a bad contract to compliance buyout. They don't have somebody like older that the Clarkson deal, the Horton deal, they disappear after this year. The only thing they have is $1.2 million on Phil Kessel the next 2 years. So they don't even. I think if you don't compliance buyout, you should get a credit. Basically, like for a window of 3 years, a $4 million credit. So,
they won't do that.
Well, then this it's not fair to everybody. So
then just screw the Leafs button and let's move on.
There you go. Of course, it's always screw the Leafs. It's always now. And I guess we're going to do a show on this, or we're going to do a longer segment on this. But somebody brought this up to me, and I think I mentioned it to Russ. If this is the year that the Leafs win the Stanley Cup, or any team that's had a long, like say the Flyers win the Stanley Cup,
yeah,
is this like, or the Sabres, they get in the playoffs, they go get hog wild, they Jonas Johansson is plays like Dominic Hasek, and they win the cup. Is it a real win?
A win's a win.
Win's a win.
Know, but hey, people.
You can't add. I mean, I don't. It's everybody had to deal with the same situation. So
in '95, nobody talks about the '95 Devils the way we thought they would. They don't.
No, they don't do it as much. But in the years following that, Russ, it was looked upon as okay. That's sort of like that. Is that really a cup win?
By Ranger fans, most people did not look at it that way.
Flyer fans, I could tell you. I mean, listen, that was the year the Flyers managed to come out of their half-decade doldrums.
Right.
And they made it to the final, and they would have possibly won against Detroit.
Yeah,
because Detroit wasn't fully at that point completely the team they are now.
Yeah,
the team they were in '97.
In '97, yeah,
they could have possibly, and trust me, I don't think anybody you wouldn't have heard that in Philadelphia. So, no.
Yeah, and I
like Flyers fans wouldn't be tortured by Darren McCarty if that happened.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think Toronto.
Yanni Niinimaa was even. I think he was drafted at that point, but he was still over in Finland in '95. So he wasn't.
Dana Zubers on that team?
No, Zuby still because Zubers was played in his draft year, which was '97. So he wasn't even in the on the radar then. So you would have Anatoly Semenov and Craig McTavish dragging his bones after '94 run. Time to
just to answer that question, it's 53 years. If the Leafs won it, I don't think a Leaf fan would care. They would say
they shouldn't.
Yeah, but I think you would hear enough. Like, please, they said after them making the playoffs in 2013 when it was a shortened season because of the lockout. Oh, that doesn't really count. They still have not made the playoffs in a regular season since 2004. I mean, you always bring up the caveat. I think it's because it's
you do. You bring up the caveat.
Well, no. I'm reporting this.
I'm reporting. No, you're inflecting.
Okay, that's the end of the show.
I mean, look, Mike, the Cubs eventually won. My feeling is at some point all teams win. It's just a matter of if you're alive to see it. And right now you might be.
Listen, the Phillies won game basically it was game 5.5 in 08. So yeah. I'm used to this is a city that we live on caveats, okay?
Right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Last
thing, the one thing that was included in the piece by Pierre LeBrun regarding Seattle and the naming of the team was also the possibility of Seattle hosting the 2021 draft. And I haven't read the piece, but I got from his tweets that the likelihood of that happening is slim. Not only because now we know that Montreal is more than likely. It sounds like the draft this year, whenever it happens, is going to be what they call a virtual draft, like the NFL is doing.
Right.
But that 2021 or 2022 is going to end up in Montreal, which I'm happy about because maybe we can get the same Airbnb, folks. But
I'll put personal business out there.
But this is a secret message to that guy. Hey, save it.
Right. Yeah, that wasn't a secret message, Mike.
2021. No, but Russ had a good point. For 2021 or for whatever year Montreal doesn't get it, I have a feeling the league is probably going to want to stay in the Northeast.
I could see Toronto getting it back. I could.
They haven't had it since 2002. It's it wouldn't be a big hassle. Maybe they would consider going to Tampa. They went to Florida in 2015. But Tampa's got the big building. But I have a feeling they would stay east of the Mississippi.
Here's a good draft story from that year. So in the Toronto draft, and then I'll mention one thing about Seattle real quick, but the Toronto draft, drove up there. We stopped off to unload somebody at a hotel. Like, I had the box that I was going to record with at the show and speakers in the trunk. The rest of the stuff I had like in the back seat where the other person was sitting. And we had the door locked, but my window was down a little. A window gets forced down. Everything gets stolen out of my car. Everything. My laptop, all of it. And this is a day before the draft. Maybe 2 days, but I think a day before the draft. And I literally had to go to a store and repurchase a lot of stuff just so I could do the recording that I was getting paid to do. And I was able to do it. But in Toronto, somebody stole everything out of my car. Adam Rader will remember that because he was part of the crew in the car that year. Now, as far as Seattle, people forget, for a draft, you've got to work a deal with hotels, right?
Yeah.
They're probably not far enough out now to be able to go to Seattle and book these rooms because you don't know what's going on in Seattle there. If they have the CES or something going on, you're not getting rooms. And so there's rooms. You have to scout other things, other locations for things going on. That takes a lot of time. That takes like a month or more, and nobody's flying out to Seattle soon. So I think the timeline is wrong. I do.
So, Anthony, Russ and I both flew into Seattle when we were in Vancouver last June. And we took the bus up to Vancouver. And in the morning, we stopped at a Starbucks to get a cup of coffee before the bus. I think it could be the only Starbucks in North America or perhaps the world that does not have outlets. They blocked off the outlets so people couldn't charge their phones.
Yeah, that was disappointing.
So
why?
Well, because they're the first, that's where Starbucks was from. Then probably
I get that, but why block? Why?
I know, and it was in downtown Seattle. It was a massive location.
Yeah. So, I'll go back to Seattle, catch another Mariners.
Although to be honest, there's so many coffee and tea shops in Seattle, you don't have to go to Starbucks. And
we went to another place,
and it was great. That place was great.
Yeah. So and I hope that dumpling place is still open when we come.
Dumpling place was great. I wanted to go to the Pinball Hall of Fame that they had there, but we didn't get a chance. That probably would have been fun too.
Yes. All right.
I was just happy to make it to Vancouver on time after all the storms. It got me delayed, so I got in when I got in. Hopefully get to Montreal at some point.
You'll get there.
Yep, someday. I think I'm going to drive
there, but I've been there. But it was my wife and I, and it was just terrible. We had terrible weather the whole time. But I did get to see the Expos.
There you go. I did too.
You got to see 2 Vlad Guerrero home runs.
When I went to the Big O, Bartolo Colon was just traded there. And he had just been traded to the Expos. This was when
then a week later they ran out of food.
They ran out of everything. This is when MLB was running the team. And it was funny because when you went into the place, it was leaking. They piped in crowd noise. The scorecard was like a page, maybe 2. It was awful. Everything was on the cheap. And it just, luckily I was seeing the Mets, so I was happy about that. But it was just a little sad. It was.
All right, guys. Great show. We will be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Anthony Mangione, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello, trying not to cough. And this is the Hockey Buzzcast.
Good work by you, Mike.
And remember, about the buzz. There you go. That was a fake one, Anthony.
Yeah. Okay.
Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.